Hello everyone. So this is the new passage that we are going to discuss today, and this passage is of 780 words. And this passage is a philosophical passage, and it's a difficult passage. But the idea behind giving you this passage is that certain passages, though they look difficult, but if we go to the questions, we can easily solve all the questions because the questions are of factual nature or can be easily answered. So when you will solve this passage, when you will go through the explanation, you will understand this point, and this is something which happens in most of the cases. So don't get frightened and afraid by reading few statements or few lines of the passage and skip it. I would suggest go through the passage and develop your reading habit so that you can easily comprehend and complete difficult passages as well. And questions of these passages most of the time are easy or factual in nature and can be easily answered. So let's start with this passage. Bertrand Russell said that the whole universe is simply the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms. Collocations means placement or being together. So he said that universe is nothing but accidental collocation of atoms. So things got accidentally placed in some manner and resulted into this universe, and claimed that the scientific theories leading to this conclusion, if not quite beyond dispute, that means that though people can dispute these scientific theories, so we cannot say that it is the ultimate truth and can't be disputed, are yet so nearly certain, but they are so certain that no philosophy that rejects them can hope to stand. That means that if someone tries to reject these scientific theories, that particular philosophy won't be able to survive or stand because they are almost certain, they are close to certain. Only on the, so now this ... means that there are certain parts of this quote which are not written in this passage or not used in this passage, and this RC directly moves to the last statement of quote of Bertrand Russell. Only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. So he says that soul's habitation, so it's not about humans habitation, it's about soul's habitation. That means the soul of the human being. So we are talking in a philosophical sense. So for the soul's habitation, unyielding despair is the necessity. Sir Fred Hoyle, the astronomer, talks of the truly dreadful situation in which we find ourselves. Here we are in this wholly fantastic universe with scarcely a clue as to whether our existence has any real significance. Again, a philosophical question is posed in front of us by Sir Fred Hoyle. He says that we are living in this fantastic universe and everything is so great, so good, but we do not have any clue whether our existence has any real significance, that are we important, or does our existence has any important role to play. So we do not have answer to these questions. Then estrangement breeds loneliness and despair. Estrangement means that when the bond is broken or when the friendship is broken. So when something of this sort happens, it breeds, that means it develops loneliness and despair, the encounter with nothingness, cynicism, empty gestures of defiance, as we can see in the greater part of existentialist philosophy and general literature today. So estrangement breeds all these things. Or it suddenly turns. So there are two things which this estrangement can do. It can bring loneliness and despair, encounter with nothingness, cynicism, empty gestures of defiance, and all these things. Or it suddenly turns, as I have mentioned before, into the ardent adoption of a fanatical teaching which, by a monstrous simplification of reality, pretends to answer all questions. Monstrous simplification of reality means that monstrous means very big. So big simplification of reality. So reality is complex, huge, and all that thing, but we are trying to simplify it to a very simple level. So this complex thing, this complex reality, we are trying to simplify it by doing this monstrous simplification, like huge simplification we did, and that pretends to answer all questions. So this estrangement can either do all these things, or it can turn into a teaching which can pretend to answer all questions. Questions like whether our existence has any real significance. So what is the cause of estrangement? So now the next question is, what causes estrangement? Never has science been more triumphant, never has man's power over his environment been more complete, nor his progress faster. So the author is now quoting the current scenario, that these are the things which is currently happening. It cannot be lack of know-how that causes the despair, not only of religious thinkers like Kierkegaard, but also of leading mathematicians and scientists like Russell and Hoyle. So author says that lack of know-how cannot be the reason of despair, because we have religious thinkers like Kierkegaard, we have leading mathematicians like Russell and Hoyle. So these people know all, they have lot of knowledge. So lack of know-how cannot be the reason of despair. So since despair is, as discussed and said by Bertrand Russell, unyielding despair can the soul's habitation, is the only thing which can result into soul's habitation. So now the author says that this despair cannot be because of lack of know-how. We know how to do many things, but how do we know what to do? So author says that we know how to do many things. So for example, we know how to murder a person, we know how to take care of a wounded animal, we know how to pluck a flower, we know how to plant a tree, but how do we know what to do? This is the question. So how to do things is something which we can know, but what to do is something which is not answered by anyone. Ortega Y. Gasset put it succinctly. Succinctly means in a simple manner, or briefly and clearly. He says, we cannot live on the human level without ideas. So he says that ideas are very important to live on the human level. That is, again, we are talking about the philosophical sense or the soul's habitation. Upon them depends what we do. So on these ideas depends what we do. So the answer to the question, how do we know what to do, depends on the ideas. Living is nothing more or less than doing one thing instead of another. So we have lot of choices and we pick one of the choice and that decides how we are living. What then is education? Another question is raised, what is education? It is the transmission of ideas which enables man to choose between one thing and another, or to quote Ortega again, to live a life which is something above meaningless tragedy or inward disgrace. So he says that education is transmission of ideas which enables man to choose between one thing and another, that is living. So education helps you in living, and as quoted by Ortega, to live a life which is something above meaningless tragedy or inward disgrace. Now the next thing says, how could, for instance, knowledge of the second law of thermodynamics help us in this? So now they are asking existence of science. Lord Snow tells us that when educated people deplore the illiteracy of scientists, he sometimes asks, deplore means to bring it down or to demean someone, so to disapprove someone. So when educated people deplore illiteracy of scientists, he sometimes asks, how many of them could describe the second law of thermodynamics? He asks about these educated people. The response he reports is usually cold and negative. So most of the people who deplore illiteracy of scientists, they themselves cannot describe second law of thermodynamics. Yet he says, I was asking something which is about the scientific equivalent of, have you read a work of Shakespeare's? So asking about second law of thermodynamics is as similar as asking, have you read a work of Shakespeare's? So these things can be relatable. One is in the science field and the other one is in the literature field. Such a statement challenges the entire basis of our civilization. What matters is the toolbox of ideas with which, by which, through which we experience and interpret the world. Again, ideas. So you can see that these are the things which are repeated again in each paragraph. So we are again referring to ideas, and we are saying that ideas with which, by which, through which we experience and interpret the world. The second law of thermodynamics is nothing more than a working hypothesis suitable for various types of scientific research. So second law of thermodynamics is suitable for various types of scientific research. So this is needed for different types of scientific research. On the other hand, a work by Shakespeare teems with the most vital ideas about the inner development of man, shows the whole grandeur and misery of human existence. So Shakespeare talks, and his ideas, if we team them, teams means to fill them with something, or to join something with. So when we team with most vital ideas about the inner development of man, so they actually talk about grandeur and misery of human existence. So they talk on the philosophical sense. How could these two things be equivalent? Again, the author is asking this question. What do I miss as a human being if I have never heard of the second law of thermodynamics? The answer is nothing. So even if you do not know a lot of scientific discoveries or of second law of thermodynamics, for instance, you do not miss anything. The answer is nothing. And what do I miss if by not knowing Shakespeare, unless I get my understanding from another source, I simply miss my life. So this means that knowing Shakespeare is not the only thing. If you can get this kind of knowledge from some another source, for example, you can go through a Hindi writer, or you can go through another writer of another language who talks about human existence and everything. So that is okay. Then it is okay not knowing Shakespeare. Otherwise, you simply miss your life. Shall we tell our children that one thing is as good as another? Now the comparison is made between science and literature. Here a bit of knowledge of physics, and there a bit of knowledge of literature. If we do so, the sins of the fathers will be visited upon the children unto the third and fourth generation, because that normally is the time it takes from the birth of an idea to its full maturity, when it fills the minds of a new generation and makes them think by it. So he says that comparing this thing is a sin, and if we talk about that, and if we suggest this thing, or we tell our children about this thing, that one is knowledge of physics and the other is a knowledge of literature, this sin that we do now will affect the third and fourth generation of our children. Science cannot produce ideas by which we could live. So science cannot help us on the living side, like the soul's habitation, humanity and everything. Even the greatest ideas of science are nothing more than working hypotheses, useful for purpose of special research, but completely inapplicable to the conduct of our lives or the interpretation of the world. So all these knowledge of science or greatest ideas of science are just working hypotheses for the purpose of special research, but they do not tell us how to conduct our life or to answer these kind of questions, like whether our existence has any real significance. If therefore a man seeks education because he feels strange and bewildered, because his life seems to him empty and meaningless, he cannot get what he is seeking by studying any of the natural sciences, that is, by acquiring know-how. So if you are feeling these kind of things, you cannot get answers by learning science or knowing the acquiring the know-how. That study has its own value, which I am not inclined to belittle. That means to make it less, or belittle means to make it less, or to demean someone, or to take it, reduce the importance of anything. So author is telling clearly that this study has its own value. It tells him a great deal about how things work in nature or in engineering, but it tells him nothing about the meaning of life and can in no way cure his estrangement and secret despair. So when we are talking on the life, when we are talking about the soul's habitation, when we are talking about the way we live, and when we are talking about how do we answer these kind of questions, whether our existence has any real significance, science never helps us. At that time, where then shall he turn? Maybe in spite of all that he hears about the scientific revolution and ours being an age of science, he turns to the so-called humanities. So he has to turn towards humanities, where he can get answer to these questions. Here indeed he can find, if he is lucky, great and vital ideas to fill his mind, ideas with which to think and through which to make the world, society and his own life intelligible. Intelligible means something which can be understood, something which is comprehensible, something which can be discussed, or people can understand that. So humanities is something where we need to shift, or the literature and all these things. So if you now try to summarize and understand the passage is more about the contradiction or the conflict between science and literature or humanities, and how literature and humanities can help you answer the questions of life, can give you answer to the existence of your to the significance of your existence. And science, on the other hand, is a know-how field which is needed for a lot of research purposes, but never helps us answer to these questions which are directly related to the way we live and the way we understand each other. Now let's move to the question and see whether we can answer them just by recalling all the information and having an idea about that. So if you have this plain idea after reading this passage that this is all which we need to understand, that literature is something which helps us give answers to these questions. Science is a know-how thing and can never help us answer these questions related to life. We need to move to humanity or to Shakespeare to understand the life, and not knowing these scientific theories or these know-how knowledge, if we are missing it, we do not miss a lot and we miss nothing. Let's see the questions first. The author wisely agrees with all of the following except that. So we need to find out one option which author won't agree. So 3 things author agrees, 1 thing author won't agree. So the first one is, education leads to transmission of ideas which enables man to make his choices. Okay. Scientific ideas are useful for interpretation of life. So we can easily see that the second one is something which author will never agree, because this is the whole gist of the passage. So without even discussing about A, C and D, we can mark this one. Let's read remaining 2 as well. It takes about 3-4 generations from the birth of an idea for it to reach its maturity. This is discussed in the last paragraph. Sorry, the third last paragraph. If we do so, the sense of will be visited upon the 3rd and 4th generation, because that normally is the time it takes from the birth of an idea to its full maturity. Science tells him little about the meaning of life. This is true and is discussed in the entire passage and has been discussed so many times. For example, here he turns to the so-called humanities. Here indeed, if he is lucky, can know a lot of things. So this is also true. Education leads to transmission of ideas which enables man to make his choices. This is given in the when we discussed about what is education. So if you see here, what then is education? It is the transmission of ideas which enables man to choose between one thing and another. So the correct answer is option number B. Next, what according to the author could hold the key towards making human life and the world intelligible? So here author says that humanities holds the key to make human life and the world intelligible. So we can directly mark option C, because this is the fact based question. Technical advancement won't give you answer to this thing. Education won't give you the answer to this thing, and second law of thermodynamics would definitely not give you answer to these things. Third, the author is most likely to be, we can see that it is a philosophical passage. So he is not a scientist, one thing. He is not a literature, another thing. Columnist, also no. So he is a philosopher. That is the most likely thing for the author, because he is giving a philosophy about things. Fourth, the author uses the second law of thermodynamics to illustrate his argument about the little purpose of scientific know-how in the experience and interpretation of the world, argue how educated people deplore the illiteracy of scientists, demonstrate the importance of second law of thermodynamics to human life. So this is totally wrong. Now draw a parallel between Shakespeare's work and the second law of thermodynamics. The idea is not to draw the parallel between Shakespeare's work and second law of thermodynamics. So that also can be ruled out because that was not the reason why author has written all this passage. Argue how educated people deplore the illiteracy of scientists. That is not the reason why author used second law of thermodynamics. The idea is to create this relationship that illustrate his argument about the little purpose of scientific know-how in the experience and interpretation of the world. So that's something he was trying to tell us when he says that what do you miss if you do not know second law of thermodynamics, and he says nothing. The answer is nothing. So the correct answer to this question is option number A. Question 5. The passage quotes all the following except. So Fred Hoyle, Lord Snow, Ortega and Kierkegaard. So Kierkegaard is discussed here in the passage, but he is not quoted, and other than everyone is quoted in this passage. So the answer to this question is straightforward D. You can see in the passage where other people are quoted. For example, you can see Lord Snow tells us, and here he is being quoted. Then to quote Ortega again, here he is quoted, and then Fred Hoyle, Sir Fred Hoyle, and here again quoted. So the correct answer is option number D. He is mentioned here, but he is not quoted. 6. The title that best describes the passage is. So you can see that the passage was a conflict or a debate between the importance of science and literature, and who can actually answer the question about life and ourselves and the importance of this thing. So we can see estrangement and men's existence. No, that is not the main thing. Human existence, the need for ideas. See, this is something which is mentioned, but there is lot of time in, or most of the paragraph or passage discussed about the debate between science and humanities or literature. So the third one is the correct one. An encounter with nothingness is also not the correct title. So that completes the passage. I hope you enjoyed the explanation and the answers, and if you liked it, please like, share and subscribe, and we are thinking, and we are hopeful that if you spread it properly, if you subscribe it, we'll reach to more people, and our subscriber base will increase, and we'll be more motivated to bring to you guys a lot of videos and lectures and everything. So that's it guys. Happy learning. Enjoy your day.